I hope that does it. So moving on. Looks like Dave Olson's got 5. That's good enough for me right now. Short round, huh? Challenge accepted. Yeah. If Disney came to you with the ream of paper and said Episode 9 of Star Wars is all yours, no retconning. I don't know what that is. What would you do to unscrew what Abrams, Johnson, Kennedy et al. Have screwed up? Keep in mind that this would be the final story of the main saga. I'll give you my first impression. It would be a variation on this. When I talked about it with Dave Sussman, and mentioned that the reason that these millennials are so angry at the left is because the left has destroyed their post-Christian religion of Star Wars. And they have not just made bad movies; they've made movies that went backwards. Retroactive continuity. Thank you. They went backwards and undid things. They made hyperspace into a weapon in one episode that leaves people wondering, well, why don't we just take a brick and connect it to hyperspace and destroy the entire fleet? That kind of thing. They've undone everything that Luke Skywalker's about. They've undone everything that the Jedi Order is about. What used to be the most clear-cut example of good versus evil, Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader, is now two emo, teens basically, talking about how good and evil is all relative and why don't we just get together and kind of run the place on our own. And all of this stuff is essential to the Star Wars that people loved, and it's all been destroyed. So I told Dave that what I think people should do is just this is I don't know if this counts as retroactive continuity. Yes, I think I would. I don't see how you can do it without retcon. I don't think you can. I would say simply this. I would go out and make the movie that comes after Return of the Jedi. And I would go back to good and evil. And if I didn't have the ability to do that, I simply just, honestly, I think the only thing that you could do would be to simply say that these movies didn't happen. And the example I used was to say, it's like saying to Christians, well, your religion didn't happen. It's like, no. What happened was Christ came to earth and his ministry and all of this stuff that we believe in, that's all true. But many years later, a bunch of evil popes got together and rewrote the history of what Christ did. And that's what you've been taught is true, but it's not true. That all of the stories we saw and the prequels and then the number 7, especially number 8, just a lie. But that's probably not even going to work, I don't think. So to answer it, I think what I would do to answer your question seriously is I think I would, if I had one last movie to make, I would introduce the Jedi Order that has been training underground for the day that this ultimate weapon is being unleashed. And you can't go another ultimate weapon past the weapon in Episode 7, which made the Death Star look like a pea shooter. So when I say the ultimate weapon, I think it should not be a physical weapon. I think it should be a moral weapon. I think it should be that the Jedi have been waiting for some sort of a preset or some kind of an intentional control over people's actual minds and free will. And then I would bring them out. I'd bring them out in a fleet of ragtag ships. I would use the Corellian pirates. I would just pretend that resistance movement that we saw in the Solo movie, just pretend that whole thing never happened. And I would have people that look like leaders of the Rebel Alliance, not some, 14-year-old girl, just appear and set things right and explain all of it, That'd be kind of fun if you really want, since now you asked me a question I actually find really kind of interesting and it's fun to think on your feet. What you might be able to do is you might be able to say all of the stuff that Rey does that seems so Mary Sue and so impossible. First time she ever flew a starship was because, you know, she's got the Force. And first time she ever picked up a lightsaber, she defeats what's his name because she's got the Force. And all the rest of this nonsense that people hated. I would just basically say, yeah, she was able to do that because there were 100,000 Jedi concentrating on doing it at the same time. So I'd bring out the hidden army of goodness, and I would make damn sure that the Jedi were what the Jedi are supposed to be, and I would have them emerge from the darkness. I would write a plot that would make it clear, kind of a bit like the Foundation trilogy in a way, make a plot that would make it clear why it was essential for people to think that the Jedi had been destroyed and reduced to Luke Skywalker. I'd come up with an explanation for why it was critical that Luke Skywalker didn't know about this, so you don't have to retroactively make him pretending he didn't know. But I would have Luke Skywalker be the leader of this, having made the transition to Force Ghost or something. And I would basically say that everything that happened in 7 and 8 is in the parentheses of this smaller plot, behind which this much larger plot of good and evil is unfolding. I would to clean up the mess, I would literally show a flashback scene or a video somehow. I would literally show a room full of 10,000 aliens sitting there with their eyes closed, visualizing the Millennium Falcon making those turns. In fact, as a matter of fact, the ultimate thing you could do, this is actually kind of cool, the ultimate thing you could do is to find out that Rey has actually no powers at all. None. She has none. She is, in fact, a piece of clay that the Jedi used because of her personal virtue. You can't write her out of it. She's a pretty decent character if she was well written. Because of the personal virtue of Rey and Finn and why can I never remember the damn fighter pilot's name? It'll come up in the stream in just a second. I can never remember his name. But these three are the moral leaders of the future, and that the Jedi Order, Poe Dameron, thanks. The Jedi Order has been watching and controlling this against this giant last gasp of evil, and that Rey and Poe Dameron and Finn and everybody else, including, my God, what's the matter with me? Ren. Kalo? See, it just goes to show you how interestingly uninteresting these people are. Kylo Ren. All of them are pawns. All of them are pawns in this gigantic battle, and then you would have to set up, once you've done this, you would have to set up the fact that the Sith have been preparing something that makes the Death Star and the subsequent thing also brackets against a much larger thing. So I turned it into this. I turned it into a kind of a Götterdämmerung. I turned it into the final battle between good and evil. And we would find that all of these people that we've seen before are pawns, and they don't really understand what their purpose is until they die. So Obi-Wan Kenobi was a pawn until he died. And at that point, Obi-Wan Kenobi was guiding events, guiding Luke's events, keeping Luke in the dark on what was really going on. And then when Luke dies, he then fully understands what's happened to him and immediately loses all of his bitterness and so on. We get a written explanation or a spoken explanation for why it was important that Rey believed that the Jedi Order was trashed, and why it was important for the universe to believe that the Jedi were gone, and that's what I would do. That wouldn't be too bad, actually. Let's see here.